When you're building a dining table, or anything for that matter, it's important to make sure you get the right materials. So pull up a chair and let's chat about what's the right hardwood for your hardwood dining table. Hardwood is a great material for a dining table, so we're already off to a great start. It's solid, it's flat, it can be made to any shape you want and finished just about any color. It holds up really well over time, and once you feel like you need it, the table can be resurfaced and refinished, making it literally good as new so the table can last just about forever. That said, there are a lot of different hardwoods, so which is the right one for your table? We're going to be looking at 4 of them today: walnut, ash, oak, and maple. There are lots of other good ones, but these are my 4 favorites, and they'll help us talk about all the important things to think about. So first, let's talk about their durability. Hardwoods are hard. They can stand up to a lot, but they're not all the same amount of hard. So let's compare these 4 and see how they stack up. Of these 4, maple is the hardest. It's got a closed grain, and more on that later, but it means the wood is really consistent in hardness. There aren't any weak points in this piece of wood. I'm sure you could dent it if you wanted to, but it is going to be hard. I've used this for all sorts of stuff: countertops, baseboards, dining tables. When something needs to hold up to a lot of use, maple's really great. So are all of these, but maple's just even a little bit extra hard. Now would be a good time to mention the way I'm determining which of these is the hardest is using the Janka hardness scale. It's a standard for how the hardness of a wood is determined. It has something to do with pushing a ball into the wood or something. I don't know exactly. Basically, each of these woods ends up with a score so you can compare them. For your reference, I'll put their scores right here. Oak is also a very hard hardwood. I built my own dining table at home from oak, and I use that table every day for everything, and it's still looking great. Oak's not quite as hard as maple, but it's still very durable. With it being a bit of a more open grain, it's possible that the table won't wear perfectly evenly, but that's not going to affect your everyday love or use of the table. Ash is next on the list, and again, it's almost as hard as oak. It's the 3rd wood down, and it's what they make baseball bats out of. It's also what I made my desk out of. Even at number 3 on our list, it's still super hard, and you're not going to notice in your everyday life between ash, oak, or maple. Walnut is at the bottom of this list, as it is the softest of these 4 woods. But it is still a hardwood. It's still going to stand up to everyday life. My parents' dining table is made out of walnut, and they use it all the time. You just need to be a little bit more careful with a walnut table than you do with a maple one. Walnut is still way closer to maple in hardness than the 2x4 you'll find at a hardware store. Next, let's talk about the grain in the woods. I finished each of these blocks with a black oil just to help show you what the grain looks like. You notice in black there are 2 pretty distinct categories. Maple and walnut both look pretty smooth and pretty consistent across, and ash and oak have a little bit more distinct lines, a lot more contrast. So that's what I'm talking about when I say open grain and closed grain. Open grain, you'll see the grain clearly. Closed, it's a little bit less obvious. This is about all that there is to it, unless you're building the furniture, like if you're the one gluing it. But besides that, that's all you need to know. If we take a look at the maple block, it's quite consistent all the way across. Maple typically is very uniform. One piece looks very similar to the next, especially because we're picky about only using hard maple. Walnut, on the other hand, can be a lot more adventurous. The way walnut trees grow, we often end up with much more intricate grain patterns and less consistency. Walnut wood, as you can see here, is also a very dark brown all on its own. The exact color will vary some too. It runs through different golden browns, reddish browns, deeper, darker browns, and even some other colors. The edge of the walnut tree is also very blonde, a little bit of a more yellowish color. You might hear this referred to as sapwood. It's just younger wood, but it means that the edge of a live edge walnut table will have a nice line running down it. As an open grain wood, oak has a very visible grain. It's quite a fine grain, small lines running right next to each other. Like maple, oak will typically look very consistent from one piece to the next. Ash is also open grain and has an even more pronounced grain pattern. I like to think of oak as being drawn with a pencil and ash as being drawn with a crayon. It makes the grain very clear and easy to see and very sharp. Ash is also pretty consistent and it's a pretty bright white naturally. Finally, let's talk about the finish on the woods. We'll start with oak because this table that I'm sitting at right here is an oak table. Oak is a really pretty wood, and with a natural finish like this table has, it comes out with a nice golden color. Oak comes out really nice in a lot of colors, actually, but it does usually do better with warmer tones. When it gets finished pretty much any color, it's got a bit of a two-tone look to it, with the grain taking this color slightly differently. It's subtle, but it is there. Some finishes, the color appears pretty much the same, but the light plays off the grain differently, so it still shows off that two-tone look. The other wood that does that two-tone look really well is the other open grain wood, ash. This is an ash table. It's the only table I've got today with a finish with a color. This is a white table. It's got a white finish. Ash is a great choice for this. It's a really white wood all on its own, so it shows off any color really well, especially the monochromatic colors. Whites, grays, and blacks are all really great on ash. It's not to say it doesn't do browns well either. It does, and it comes out really nice and bright with a natural finish. As you can see, ash has an even more pronounced two-tone grain than the oak does, perhaps best seen with the blocks that we were looking at earlier. If you want a wood that takes color well but doesn't give you so much of a two-tone, then maybe let's take a look at maple. Maple is also a very bright wood, and it's a really subtle light brown when it's finished with a natural finish. It can also take colors of all sorts really well, different browns as well as whites and grays, although I might not recommend black for maple. The grain isn't super strong, so it doesn't really show through very well, and ends up looking a little bit like the table got painted. That said, if you're looking for a consistent single color, even if it's black, maple is your wood. Finally, let's look at walnut. Walnut is a beautiful wood. Like I said earlier, it's a dark brown wood all on its own, so it finishes pretty differently than the other woods. A natural finish will get you exactly what you see here, a beautiful brown table. A natural finish will also highlight the character of the wood, showing off the character of the grain and the variation in the color. Here we do also do a couple of other finishes that add some colors. They mute that variation in the color in the wood, but they do not try to hide the character in the grain. If you want to do that, then a different wood's going to be better for you. And that's really the crux of all of this. It's about what you're looking for. I promise all 4 of these are really great options. We love all 4 woods and use them for different reasons in our shop and in my home and my parents' home. And I'll keep using all of them. Figure out what works best for you. What's going to suit what you need your table for, what style suits your home, and what style suits your taste. Get a wood that will make you happy. Okay. So I left this one out because it's technically not a different wood, but we do also build tables from it. We call it rustic maple. We treat it a bit like it is a different wood, but it is still just maple. It's just as hard and durable as maple, but we call it rustic because it's still got meal markings on it. They're not sharp, but the tabletop isn't totally smooth either. This basically takes the place of the grain in the table. Each one is unique, but this time it's because people made them that way, not nature. The finish on these will also get a bit of a two-tone look, just because the meal marks take more stain than the rest of the table. And that's all about rustic maple.